We're Tim and Claudia Farrell, Berry Patch Farms in Brighton, Colorado. Our story begins many, many years ago. Um, we we are organic farmers because we just believe that God made a system, and that we feel works beautifully together. And by organic farming, we're working within that system instead of fighting that system or trying to do things in a more artificial kind of way, with chemicals and manipulating. So we find it actually both challenging and very rewarding. It's amazing to see the life on our farm. And as you work with your soil and you see how incredibly beautiful this soil is and how it produces, and as you study the interaction of soil and the roots of plants and the soil microbes and how they work together, it's the most amazing, amazing thing. So, what a joy to farm. Are there heartbreaks with farming?
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
there are. We happen to live in one of the worst areas in the world for hail. Well, yeah, that's pretty painful, and it's been really painful the last few years. It's been very destructive, but it's also been amazing to watch things regenerate. In fact, there are other challenges. One of the big challenges, of course, is labor and trying to find enough help, trying to get efficient labor so that things get done in an efficient manner. There's so much competition from foreign markets that have cheaper labor that really becomes an issue for a lot of farmers.
We can't raise prices. I think everyone is realizing and seeing all across the country prices going up in every sector of life. Farmers, we can't raise our prices because Americans want cheap produce. So we, as producers, are those that are caught in the bind. If one sells, say, wholesale to a large grocery chain, they may just go elsewhere, in other words, to another farm or out of the country. They get cheaper produce. So the local farmer can feel the squeeze with that because labor's going up. Well, what fuel is going up? Everything's going up, but our profit margin, regardless of how hard we try, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner.
Where do you sell your products? And
We
how
sell
do you
directly to the public, which is a really good thing. There are those who come out and pick berries and other fruit and vegetables here. We also have a CSA, which is Community Supported Agriculture, whereby an individual for X amount of dollars purchases a share, technically like a share in the farm, and shares the liabilities, the heartbreak, and the joys of the harvest. And they get every week a box of produce for their feed. So we go that's our model. Now others have other models at farmers markets, others go direct sales to grocery stores, wholesale outlets. But our model is just that.
And you really just try to raise fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
Cut flowers are also another avenue that has been a nice revenue stream over the last couple of years. We've done pick your own flowers for years, but we have a neighbor who has a flower farm that we worked with, and that's just been a great cooperative effort. There's still a high demand for local flowers, and so she comes and cuts my pick your own flowers.
We have always been certified organic, and that has unique challenges of being that because we are held to a certain protocol as to the kinds of products we can use as we raise our crops, as well as the type of seeds, so forth and so on. And that's also challenging as to how we build our soils. We just cannot use synthetic chemicals to build their soils, or herbicides, in that matter, or pesticides. So we have a certain regimen, a certain row to hoe. We're really held to that by our certifier and by the national program, the NOP, National Organic Program. So we believe it's valuable, and our customers enjoy knowing and are more secure that this is a certified organic farm.
Cover cropping is a hugely important way to build soil. It's also extremely challenging here in the West with water, because cover crops need water. There aren't any that we're aware of that grow, our 10 inches of rain a year. In a typical year, we get 10 to 12 inches of precipitation, and that water has to go to crops. We have, in a good year, we swing it over and we do as much cover cropping as possible. But on drip irrigation, that water is only on top of the bed, not in between the beds, and so there's not enough to grow cover crop in between the beds. So that has been a struggle for us. There are other methods of irrigation that would be able to give us more uniform coverage, but they're extremely expensive, and we just can't afford it, and they don't really fit in with our water use and trying to limit and conserve water. So that is a real challenge for us. So one of the things I've begun doing is using certain legume crops that build nitrogen in the soil as a cover crop. They're productive. I don't get as much nitrogen in my soil as I would as if I didn't harvest those, but you get organic matter in the soil by leaving the roots in. We don't pull them out, we leave the roots in. There's things like that that we're trying to do cover cropping, build our soil, and yet be able to have enough water and production for our needs, for our markets. So challenges. Of course, water here in the West is a huge issue and a huge challenge for all farmers, organic or conventional.
It costs about $1,000 an acre to put in drip irrigation. That means all the equipment, the pump, the pond, the tape, drip tape, the filters. When you average that out, about $1,000 an acre. And at our other farm, we had a grant from NRCS that shared the cost with us, so that was very helpful. Thank you.
It was huge,
It was really good.
actually, because drip irrigation is by far the most efficient way to water, and it allows the plant to have the water that it needs for the day based on temperature, wind, humidity, all those kinds of things. And it puts it right there at the root zone. I had done a lot of reading about high tunnels back east in winter production, and I thought, I think we can do that. It's really funny. I have learned so much. Here in the West, in the Mountain West, our high elevation sun in the winter will just fry things in a high tunnel if it's not properly ventilated. So I've learned, but then the temperature plunges at night. We can get to 25 below here in the valley, and so the stuff will just freeze solid. So I use lots of layers of row cover. I put the row cover on at night, but uncover stuff during the day so it has access to sunlight. Very labor intensive, but the quality of greens that you can grow is incredible. And they're greens that I can't really grow in the field well, certainly not in the spring. You can grow them in the fall sun, much easier to grow them in a high tunnel in the winter, even with all the covering and uncovering.
How many different crops do you grow in the high tunnel?
I grow a lot of different crops in the high tunnel. I have started doing some lettuce. I finally found some lettuce that works really well. Spinach, kale, chards, several different types of chard. I've got collards. I've got
Tomatoes.
I do tomatoes, and I do early green beans in the high tunnel.
Parsley.
Tomatoes with the green beans.
I do. Actually, I grow beans in between the tomatoes. those beans will be done after early before the tomatoes get too big and before it's time to start picking. So then I clip the tomato or I clip the beans off and leave the bean roots in to help build the soil. And so I'm not just leaving bare soil there, but I'm getting an early crop of green beans, which is tough to do when you get hail in this climate. So it's been a godsend to do that. Now I have green beans for my CSA that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and green beans for sale. But otherwise, I have to. Mine were so set back with this hail. So it's good. I have all kinds of other stuff too. I've grown flowers in there. I've grown bok choy is a big one.
Yeah.
I am sure there's other stuff I'm not even thinking of.
Radishes sometimes.
I've done radishes and parsley, and radishes I don't grow out in the field here because we have cabbage maggots, and they're really hard to control organically.
So let's end with like what, NRCS, like what we've done for you working with NRCS.
Yeah. Well, first off, we mentioned this drip irrigation system at our other farm. That was a very nice cooperative effort. Fantastic. And then we have our high tunnel through the EQUIP program that was 5-6 years ago.
Oh, way longer than that.
Wow.
It's been probably, I think it was like 2009 when we put up the high tunnel.
Yeah. So we've been very, very happy with this private and public partnership with NRCS.
And you host so many events for us when, students, you're always willing to take tours and people, we've had people from China out to visit you guys and the engineers 2 years ago from Iowa State University and
Sometimes we just don't even remember that stuff.
yeah,
We should.
but they do, you're always willing to educate and to help people and
We really enjoy it. We really enjoy having the public out here and being able to educate folks who are so far removed from farms and their food sources at this point. It's just good for kids to come out and experience a little bit of farm life and for people to just have a little closer connection to where their food comes from. I think that's a good thing.